your pricing strategy is only as good as the background tech that you have to operationalize it. So if you have a legacy like monolithic stack and you can come up with these great strategies, but it takes you 6 months to go implement that strategy, then you've probably been left behind already.
Coffee's for closers only.
So we've established my proposal is sound in principle. Now we're just haggling over price.
Let's see how much we're going for on eBay.
Man, it's the same as Dunkin' Donuts. Costs 15 times the price.
Welcome to Impact Pricing, the podcast where we discuss pricing, value, and the dynamic relationship between them. I'm Mark Stiving, and I run boot camps to help companies get paid more. We have two guests today. Our first guest is Ryan Doran. Here are three things you want to know about Ryan before we start. He is partner and lead creative and head of UI UX for Turkois. I hope that's how you say it. And he's been doing this for over 17 years. Wow. He has a deep expertise in monetization strategy, payments, scaling technology businesses, and he's passionate about solving the tough problems at the intersection of growth, pricing, and payment infrastructure. Our second guest is Danny Smith. Here are three things you want to know about Danny. First, he's a solution architect at a company you've probably heard of before. It's called Stripe, and he works on partnering with AWS on AI-driven commerce innovations. He was a senior solutions architect at ServiceNow, director of cloud solutions at Tech Data. Welcome, Danny.
Thank you.
I just have to tell you, I am nervous because I'm talking to two technical people, and I have not played in tech space for, forever. So please be gentle on me.
Absolutely.
We'll try to dumb it down for me to understand anything we talk about today. So Ryan, how did you get into pricing, or do you think of yourself as being in pricing?
Sure. Yeah. I actually think of myself as being in product. So I'm a designer by trade, and happen to be one of the owners of our company. And when you're building products that have payment backbones enabled through them, you have to start thinking about tools that enable your customers to build pricing models, right? So if you're building a point of sale, which we do have, you have to be able to say, what are the guardrails of the product that's being priced, or if you're building a product that can have variable-based pricing, which we do allow in our platform. Are you saying that it can be any number upon checkout, or are you saying that there are guardrails attached to that number? Can only be as low as, can only be as high as, can it be combined with other products, things like that. And then through Stripe, we're able to also do things for in-person payments, like kick off a subscription, right? Enable subscriptions from an on-site payment, capture a method of payment, apply that to a customer record, and build a customer portal from that record that they can access and manage their invoices from, right? So all that attaches to a product we might build, but you have to put yourself into the place of our customer, the business, and say, what pricing mechanisms do they need to be enabled to enable these kinds of products being purchased?
Okay, I want to make sure I understand this right. Let's assume I want to go build a new SaaS platform of some sort, and I actually don't have the engineers. I don't want to build it. I hire you and your company. You guys build it for me, and in the end, I need to get someone to pay me for it. And so you're going to build in the payment structure, the payments infrastructure, and you're going to help me through how is it we're going to price it, and not necessarily set the price levels, but at least the pricing structures.
Sure, exactly. We would call that payment flows, right? How is the payment going to flow through the platform? Who's going to be the merchant of record in that platform that you're building? Are there any service fees applied, right? And Danny can talk a little bit more about like how Stripe sees that kind of relationship.
Awesome. Danny, who the heck are you? I'm sorry. Let me ask it differently. How did you get into pricing, or are you in pricing?
Yeah, no, great question. So I'm an architect by trade. So my previous background, I was in cloud architecture and building cloud solutions and workflow automations at companies like ServiceNow. And one of the things that I really started thinking about is, you can build a workflow, you can build an awesome like cloud-based solution SaaS platform, as you were mentioning, Mark, but how do you monetize that, right? So companies like OpenAI, For a while there, everybody was using the free version of ChatGPT, but if you want to upgrade, you want an upsell opportunity to get like, access to the more advanced models, the beta features, things like that. How do I monetize that strategy? So companies like OpenAI, Perplexity, um, we have 300,000 billing customers, so I could rattle off a ton of big names, SiriusXM. They come to us with basically their pricing strategy needs. And what we provide them is payments infrastructure. So we basically obfuscate all the complexity of implementing that at a global scale. Because at the end of the day, pricing, it's not just about strategy, but it's also about architecture. It's like if you don't have a flexible platform, you're leaking money basically with every transaction. If you want to implement things like a hybrid pricing model, as you see with some of these AI companies, it's definitely seat based plus usage based. Um, the more that the market pushes for more complex pricing strategies, we have to build that underlying architecture and infrastructure that helps the technology meet the business need. So we don't really sell a product per se. We sell an infrastructure that allows you to execute on a million different pricing strategies. So I got dragged into pricing by working for a company that helps to implement global pricing use cases across every vertical you can think of.
Makes sense. By the way, next time you're listing major companies you work with, mention impact pricing. Okay.
Impact
I,
pricing.
yeah.
That should be the first one, I think, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
It should be. Absolutely. I know we take Stripe.
Maybe tell us about like how that experience has been.
Yeah, you
Save
don't.
that for your own education.
Yeah, I was gonna say you don't want to know. I'm not the guy that does these things. So, um, all right, great concept so far. And so I talk to people who focus on how do we do pricing? How do we think about the value to our customers? And this whole concept of AI is throwing a whole bunch of monkey wrenches in the middle of all of this pricing. Things are changing pretty dramatically, and so when we start thinking about pricing, let me start with this. What's the difference between a billing system and a payment system? As in, could I use Chargebee or Chargeify or Zora and then still use Stripe as my payments? Is that how that works? Or is Stripe actually doing the billing nowadays?
We do both. So that and I love the question, right? Because we're actually rated in the Gartner Magic upper right quadrant and also Forrester as the number one company in the world that integrates payments and billing. But you can also use this independently. So we have many, many customers, for example, that use Zora for billing. So think of like the subscription engine, but you have to send an invoice to collect payment. So you can interact directly with Stripe's APIs to generate that invoice and collect payment. Or if you want to use a combined platform approach, you can use Stripe as your subscription engine. These are the open AIs of the world, for example, that use both our subscription engine and our invoicing engine. Because at the end of the day, that's what a billing platform basically is, managing the churn of recurring payments, implementing that logic from a subscription standpoint, and then managing the actual collection of payments. So we do both, but we also support what we call multi-processor. So you can use Stripe billing and use even one of our competitors for payments. So Stripe billing is a standalone product. So you could use Stripe billing and use Adyen or PayPal on the back end, WorldPay, whoever, because we're definitely moving towards what we call a composable architecture. We understand that enterprise companies, for example, are not typically going to go all in with one payments provider. They're going to have backups. Perfect example is like Uber Eats. There was a big outage for one of our competitors a few months ago. All the orders failed over to Stripe using our multi-processor solution, and no one missed an Uber Eats delivery. So yeah, everyone continued to get their food delivered on time.
I was worried about my McDonald's delivery. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you'd be surprised. So, yeah, DoorDash, some of our very large customers implement multi-processor based on this exact kind of concept that I'm
Yep.
outlining for you. Is that you don't want
Yep.
to go all in on one. But yeah, quick and short answer is you can use Stripe for both billing and payments. You can use Stripe billing independently of Stripe payments, and you can use Stripe payments independently of another billing platform like a Zora or Recurly or Charge.
Yep. Okay. Ryan, did you have anything to add to that, or did you just think that was brilliant?
No, Danny had that pretty well covered. But yeah, we so and yeah, the suite of services that Stripe offers is pretty strong, and you can do quite a bit with. The product that we own is called Vanilla, and that product encases the terminal solution, which is the point of sale solution that we have, but that also encompasses Connect, which allows for multi-party payments, marketplace model, as well as the billing engine, right? So that subscription kickoff is an invoicing billing engine that is part of the solution that we've built. Um, and we don't offer that as a platform. We enable others to be the platform within that model, right? So we're enabling forward what Stripe is already doing in terms of their suite and payment architecture.
Okay, so I've let you guys give some good advertisements so far, and I'm going to ask a really hard question. Why do we still see new billing companies pop up? Uh, what are the gaps that they're filling that you guys aren't filling that we need competitors for?
Hmm.
Uh-oh,
That's a
that
tough
was too hard.
that's a tough one, but I would say that there's a lot of
Ryan's
opportunity.
perspective on this, but go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, I would say, is what is the case. Often, I mean, we talk to everything from, you know, 1 and 2 location furniture stores in Middle America, all the way up to enterprise customers that we help figure out the best payment flows or products that they should utilize and help them architect that and then implement and build that. We always encourage the groups that we work with to kind of think like the platform, because even like the most traditional retailers today, their customers are expecting that like seamless digital experience, right? So, and that goes even to municipalities, right? Municipalities are starting to turn on to thinking of you know IP as part of the assets that they own, the same way they own a snowplow, right? So there's still a lot of evolution that has to happen in the payment space, and I think that's probably why you still see growth and new new businesses pop up even in the billing side of things.
Got it.
Go ahead, Danny.
Danny, what'd you think?
Yeah, no, that's plus one to that, and also there's a lot of vertical specialization in billing. There's like different solutions that need different integrations. Billing, for example, for insurance companies, for claims, payments and things like that. And Stripe is moving aggressively into these fields, but there are just some companies that have a niche perspective and vertical expertise. So we can't possibly fill like every use case out there, but we're rapidly evolving and innovating. The interesting thing about Stripe is 65% of our employees are in engineering or tech. So we like to consider ourselves to be a technology company that just happens to be in payments versus some of our other competitors who are payments companies that dabble in tech. So we are an innovation driven company. So that's why we're adding more and more things to our roadmap, especially in billing. But there's a lot of really good niche providers out there, new companies that launch to fill in the space. Lately, we've seen a lot in the AI billing space. So, they'll launch a company because to your point, Mark, there is a gap or there is value to be added there. And then we react to that and we try to go to market as fast as we can. But we have 4 million customers to take care of. So sometimes we can't cover all the niches that crop up.
Yep.
But we do move as fast as possible to make sure that we innovate and get those covered as soon as we can.
Yep. No one expects you to be all things to everybody. I was very
No,
curious.
but
And
yeah,
and
there's a lot of competition out there to your point in billing, and we've definitely seen that, and we've made great strides. But Stripe's biggest motto is we haven't won yet. So like we understand that competition is always going to be out there. Our mission is to increase the global GDP of the internet, from an e-commerce and an in-person perspective. So we did roughly a little over 1% of global payments last year. That means we have 99% to go. We haven't won,
Little ways.
right?
Yeah.
But
Look,
we processed over $1.4 trillion in
Yeah.
payments last year, and so that's a big number. But there's still so much more that we can tackle, and so much more of these startups, the billing companies, like you said, platforms cropping up. So yeah, we covered as good as we can, but we understand that we haven't won yet.
yeah. Okay, so in a really similar question, but more specific, how did AI break things? How is AI changing things for us? What do we have to do differently now?
You want to start, Ryan, or I can?
Ryan's thinking really hard. You could just see it on his face.
I mean, yeah, I think like it goes to like the use and accessibility of data, right? It really like comes down to that, right? So it just becomes that much more important, and that much more valuable, right? So owning the relationship, um, customer data, right, often is what you're you're seeking in a transaction, right? And what can you do with that customer data after the fact? Um, Buying trends, right? How you're using those buying trends and applying them to pricing, right? There's a lot. It's just speeding up like what you can do with all the little aspects that go into a single transaction, whether it's at your local 7-Eleven or you're buying a dinette set at Bob Discount Furniture, right? Like all these transactions have different aspects and relationships and pieces of data that you can utilize. It's just how fast can you utilize them, and I think we just put a lot of accelerant on it over the last few years in terms of what you're able to do with AI.
So,
That's the tip of the iceberg for Danny, I think. But
yeah,
yeah,
I gotta point something out really quickly. So when I bring up pricing and AI, there's actually two different sides that are very different sides to this problem. One is how do I use AI to do pricing? And the other is how do I price AI products? And they're two very different things. And in my head, I was thinking, how do I price AI products? And Ryan answered, how do I use AI to do pricing? And so obviously I didn't ask the question well enough, but brilliant answer. And so Danny, let's just stick on that side of the problem today. How do I use AI to do pricing? And I think a lot of people right now are very scared of that. Um,
Mhm.
and not from a vendor
Because
perspective.
yeah, and that's there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? Anytime there's any innovation to the scale of AI, to me, it becomes like hyper personalized. Because that's one of the things that Stripe is launching is like we have our own MCP server now for the tech geeks in the audience. This is a way for an agent to interact with Stripe to generate on the fly dynamic pricing. Um, Perplexity Pro, for example, launched with us last year. You can shop for anything using Perplexity as a hyper personalized. I recently bought a TV doing this because I was typically the person that would spend all weekend researching, obviously how to get the best price, the discounts for like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but also like, does it have 4K? Does it have all the features? Taking a whole weekend to do that research, or spinning up a chat GPT or Perplexity chat thread and saying, hey, here's what I want. Go find me the best solution that fits all these needs, that fits my wall, that has the right stand. And so you just feed it in. It goes in and does all the shopping for you, negotiates the pricing, and comes back with this hyper personalized recommendation straight from your requirements. Now, we implemented some tech in the background that allows you to press a button and buy the TV without even leaving the chat session. So I think that's, to your point, Mark, like what some people are afraid of is like, hey, have I given my checkbook or my credit card over to this agent, and can it hallucinate and buy instead of buying a TV, buy 3 airplanes, or something that's going to max out
yeah,
my credit card. What Stripe has done on the back end is we've implemented API level technology that will create a budget. For example, we know that this TV, you can give it a budget. You can say, I only want to spend 1,500 or 500, whatever you say, and it will create a virtual debit card on the back end for that exact amount tied to today as an expiration date, tied to that particular transaction. So we're implementing what's called guardrails and policy engines to make sure to eliminate that fear, to your point, Mark. Like, hey, dynamic pricing is one thing, but I don't want a dynamic charge coming via this AI engine that's going to go try and buy something, hallucinate and buy something and drain my bank account. So it's a very important use case for Stripe that we've worked a lot on and solved with some of our partners.
It's
Oh,
an
okay.
interesting like kind of line you have to sit on, right? Because an agentic purchaser, right? Who is it purchasing on behalf of it? Is it the salesperson when you walk into the store that's helping you along, or is it your buddy in your pocket that's like driving you into the right purchasing mechanism? And when it's your buddy in your pocket, you're more willing for it to recognize things like your mood, right? Like we've all been in a mood where we're willing to spend the $100 that we might have in our pocket versus kind of being more thrifty, right? And when it's on your side of the fence, when it's in your corner, you're more willing to give it that kind of like leeway, right? And that's kind of where we're heading with that agentic purchasing aspect, I think.
Yeah, I've so I have to say, Danny, first off, that was a great description, and that was not the problem I was thinking of. So thank you for giving me another problem to worry about. I appreciate that.
That's why I'm here.
No, but that's actually brilliant. And the more we talk about these, the more we run into these and figure out what's happening. And Ryan, what you just said, I often step back and think, okay, I've got AI that could go do my purchasing for me. And I could have AI that goes and does my selling for me. And so now I've got AI negotiating with AI. And if I'm dealing with perplexity, is it my AI or is it their AI? Is he trying to get the best price for me or the best price for the seller?
Yeah, the tolerance thresholds, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's a question.
That use case is what we call A to A or agent to agent. And it's going to basically follow the policy guidelines that you give it. The same thing for the merchant. The merchant is going to say, offer this item just like an in-store merchant with, oh, push them to the clearance rack first, right? Like what are we trying to get rid of? Do we have inventory that we're trying to get rid of? So the merchant agent is going to have all these policy engines that says you can offer this much of a discount. Oh, and by the way, don't let them leave. Offer them another 10%. So this is all business logic that's just typically in a human's head that you're going to build into what's called a policy engine on the merchant side. You'll have the same policy engine on your buyer side to say, listen, I only want to pay $150. You basically decide the parameters, these guardrails. So they're both going to follow their guardrails, and it's going to come to a conclusion one way or the other,
It'll
based on the
it'll
fact that they're following their guardrails.
it will be fascinating to watch all this come to play. I'm looking forward to it. Um, but let me give you the problem that I was actually thinking of when I said, "Here's the problem," and that is what I've seen written as. In fact, I've even written it as sleazy price segmentation. And so they define it as sleazy because we have information that you probably shouldn't use to do price segmentation. So let's say that you could tell my mood. You shouldn't be allowed to do price segmentation, right? Now, this is what people perceive as fair or not fair, right? I'm not saying it's real. For me as a pricing guy, I'm like, get the most that they're willing to pay. I don't care what mood they're in, right? How much are they willing to pay? But when you start thinking about what do our customers think is fair, then if you know more about me than I know about me, you are now taking advantage of me.
So is that why? Yeah, it kind of puts it on the stigma of the car salesman side of things because they are basing it upon the chat you're having at that exact moment when the person only has 30 minutes to come into the dealership and take a look around and all those pressures.
Yep. Yep. And you can imagine So you know that some companies charge more if you shop on a Mac or an iPhone than if you shop on a PC or an Android, right? Because we can tell that, and that feels sleazy to a lot of people. So the question is, how much of that data um, are we going to allow people to use to make these pricing decisions? And that's hard. By the way, I'm not putting you on the well, I am putting you on the spot, but I'm not trying to pick on you.
Yeah, that's where Stripe we can claim neutrality on this. Because
I would,
we're neutral and
yeah,
programmable, so we're gonna charge whatever price your API call tells us to charge. So that, to our perspective, we try to obviously avoid anything that's gonna be, discriminatory or, we don't encourage any of this, but at the end of the day, we are a tool that you call to implement the tech part of your business strategy. So that's an unfortunate byproduct is that we are very neutral and programmatic when it comes to this use case. We're usually like the last line of defense as far as you're just creating the product and the pricing based on API calls that you're making to our platform. So
Yeah.
I would say from like, I'm a designer, right? And the value of the data, right? And like what you're doing with the relationship is fairly short-sighted. And the reason I think that car dealership comes to everybody's mind is how often do you buy a car, right? You're not asking that person to come in next week and buy a car. So the fog between that purchasing arrangement allows for something that may not be as ethical as other purchasing experiences. But in most cases, right, the the better way to treat the customer and the better way to kind of have that life cycle value for the customer is to not capitalize necessarily on negative aspects of the pricing relationship and how the storefront treats the the customer, whether that's in person or online, in terms of
Yeah. I,
the platform.
so I don't want to beat a dead horse here because it doesn't matter that much. But I'm going to point out that in a lot of cases, we don't know they're doing it. Right. So it isn't a frequency problem. It's a we just aren't aware of it problem. So when you go buy your next American Airlines flight, or I guess Delta's been dinged lately for saying, "Hey, we're using AI for pricing now." When you go buy your next Delta flight and they charge you and your friend two different prices, and you're sitting right side by side as you go to get quotes, and one of you they quoted the price because, hey, you flew first class last time, and they know that you're less price sensitive. Like, oh, okay, got it. Right? We don't know that most of the time. That's the key when I think about using AI to do pricing. But let's jump to the other side of the problem for a second, if we may, because I have a feeling you guys have some interesting insider stories here. What is changing when we want to price AI products? So, things that are coming up with AI nowadays is we know that there's cost where there wasn't cost. We know that people are trying to price outcomes instead of usage or seats. Um, um, oh, uncertainty of what the heck is going on and how much usage there's going to be. And so we've switched to doing things like tokens and credits. So there's lots of really interesting pricing things going on in the world of AI. Are you guys seeing anything there?
everything you mentioned, right? Definitely the use of tokens, credits, all
Yep.
kinds of hybrid pricing models for sure. Because there's usually like a seat base plus a usage tier. Um, to the point where Stripe, we even had to build our own meters API. In the past, we would work with the user and or partner like Turkois, say, go build out this metering solution because again, kind of based on my previous answer, we were just more a programmatic API that you would hit, say, here's the payload, here's what we charge for it. This became such a prevalent use case that we just built our own metering API. So you can now hit this API, use it to calculate your overage costs, generate that into your bill. So outcome based pricing, to your point, charging for like inputs like API calls and tokens. Businesses are really starting to take advantage of this. It's all based on value delivered, right? So we're generating like a dynamic price based on the outcome. Um, in the past, we would have to use things like chargebacks, refunds to settle that. Now we're just basically you creating this hybrid model where the entire price is based on the outcome. So yeah, we've seen everything that you mentioned and even more, honestly.
I can give an answer that's, I think there's some similarities in terms of like what's happening in the Netflix and the streaming world, right? Where you're getting we all don't know exactly how we're going to use each aspect of AI, right? I use it for Zoom note taking and helping me like streamline my scope development and uh, it's different aspects of business life, right? But you kind of have this like what I would say is in in the world kind of like a punctuated equilibrium where it's like you have a lot of change happening all at once and we have yet to figure out exactly where like things will the dust will settle, so to speak, right? So you have a lot of products with a lot of different models trying to figure out which models are best fits for these different products, some of which we don't even know if we'll be using in the next 6 months, right?
Yep.
So it's
Yeah.
and you have a lot of models that you can build using things like Stripe, right? So you have all these different factors that you kind of can A/B test and figure out, what's the best way to sell it. But if if you're not kind of knowing the value of the product in the end, then it's hard to know what the answer is, right?
Yeah. Danny, you were going to add something there?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say we've even seen customers try and translate like complex technical like API calls into like business meaningful units. Like, for example, like a chain of API call. Instead of like charging you per call, they would say, look, there's a common pattern of calls. We call it like a technical chain. We want to turn this into what we call an action unit and charge you by the action unit. So in other words, they're trying to add more value because this particular chain of calls happens a lot. And if we charge you by the call, you're going to overconsume your tokens and not meet your deliverable. So
Yep.
basically saying, let's bundle these. So it's almost like a bundle within a bundle where it's like, let's create these action units. That's a chain of calls and make that and sell you these action units so you can derive more value from your outcome versus just literally per call. Oh,
It's a value
Yeah.
offset, right? It's basically like, and I would say that it's probably happening a ton in the tech and development space, right? Because if you're cleaning up your code via the use of AI, that's one thing. If you're developing an entire feature through the use of AI and not having to pay the developer to build that feature, then there's a huge value there, right? And that offset is
yeah.
gonna kind of
And,
kind of
and the
swing.
cool thing is, yeah, you can add this abstraction layer and you can change the underlying tech chain calls without disrupting your customer facing pricing. Because again, you're just selling like action units. Like my action unit could be, refining my code instead of charging by the cursor or by like the character that you're typing in to refine the code. You're basically charging it by like, a sprint deliverable or something. So it's an action unit. So you don't disrupt your user facing pricing, but on the back end, you can make all kinds of changes to what that technical layer looks like.
Excellent. Guys, we're actually overtime, but I'm still going to ask you the last question. What is one piece of pricing advice you'd give our listeners that you think could have a big impact on their business?
I'll let you go first, Ryan, if you want.
I think it goes to our conversation a bit about AI, where like data is basically the new margin. That's a statement that I would keep in the back of my mind because you know uh, what you can do with it is only gaining in value.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I would say, your pricing strategy is only as good as the background tech that you have to operationalize it. So if you have a legacy like monolithic stack and you can come up with these great strategies, but it takes you 6 months to go implement that strategy, then you've probably been left behind already. So you want to work with the Turkoises of the world, the Stripes of the world, to make sure you've got that refined tech stack that can meet your strategy, can meet your technology very seamlessly and quickly. So you can spin on a dime. You want to be able to A/B test different strategies, but you really have to up level your back end tech stack to make sure that you're not taking like 6 months to implement a new pricing.
Yeah, I'm going to elaborate on that just a little bit. I've worked with many companies in the past where we came up with fabulous new pricing strategies, but we couldn't implement them because the systems wouldn't allow it.
There you go.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so if you're going to go create a new system or add a new system, don't do it for just what you do today. Make it flexible. Make it flexible.
Yeah, and
So
that's why we're an API
Absolutely.
first platform. We're very developer friendly. You can implement these things on the fly. We're constantly publishing tools to allow you to be very flexible in how you adjust.
excellent, guys. Thank you very much. We're not going to let you talk to Danny in the future because he doesn't have a phone number. But Ryan, if anybody wants to contact you, how can they do that?
Absolutely. They can visit turkois.io or email me at ryan at turkois, turkois.io. Also, if they'd like to see the product that I described earlier, vanilla, they can go to vanillatos.io.
Perfect.
And Ryan knows how to find me. So if you want to track me down through Ryan,
I will be, yeah, I'll be the Danny caller for anybody who'd like to speak to him.
Excellent, guys. Thank you both so much for your time today. It was fabulous. And to our listeners, if you have any comments or questions about the podcast, feel free to reach out to me, Mark at impactpricing.com. Now, go make an impact.